Hi, my name is Ian Sheridan, founder and head engineer of IJS Studios. IJS Studios is a modest audio recording studio currently operating on a part-time basis in Central Illinois. We offer recording, mixing, and mastering services to rock and metal artists in the greater Central Illinois area. A little bit about myself. I started playing drums and piano at a very young age. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household with parents who fostered me creatively throughout my childhood. My passion for music eventually led to me playing in band through school and also playing for several local bands. Throughout my first few years of playing out locally, it became very clear to me that myself and other artists really didn't have access to a reliable recording service. There's no shortage whatsoever of recording studios in the Central Illinois area, but most of them are billing at rates that are completely unattainable for a local artist. $60+ an hour is very hard to justify when you're playing at a VFW hall on a Friday night for $100. A lot of us, as a result of that, resorted to recording with amateur studios and amateur engineers. Overall, the experience was terrible, and I mean terrible. I've dealt with everything from not being allowed to track overdubs on a song simply because the engineer lacked the skill set for me to do so, to even just sketchy business practices in general. I had an engineer, take my money and not return my phone calls after I gave him an initial deposit to start work on a track. Clearly, a problem existed at that point in time. Myself and other local musicians just didn't have access to a recording studio that was reliable or one that we could afford. The combination of those two things is key in the IJS Studios business model. It's reliable and affordable. That was several years ago, and outside of our business model, nothing has changed for bands in Central Illinois since. My recording career started after several of the worst end of experiences that I had with some of these cheaper studios. I got fed up and began to slowly accumulate a small collection of studio equipment and various instruments. In this time, I also started learning about recording and audio in general, as well as how to operate a DAW. After a few years of trial and error with my own music, 2 of my own band's releases were received very warmly on a local level, receiving radio play and resulting in our attaining opening spots for national acts. After that, many of the other bands began to call me, asking me to record their projects, and naturally I didn't say no. Through the process of recording all of these other bands, I eventually came to the realization that audio is my true passion, even beyond playing music. It's on a whole nother level of commitment and dedication for me, and that's what really marked the beginning of IJS Studios. From the very beginning of my recording career, my focus was to provide my friends and their bands with something they hadn't been able to experience before. A professional environment to record in that's creatively conducive to getting the best out of them, but one that they can afford. My ideas when pricing for my studio work were, hey, if I'm in their shoes, if I'm the band that's going to record a record, when I hear the price that the engineer is asking, I want to think it's reasonable. So I've priced IJS Studios accordingly through the years. And the result is that we've recorded 20-something albums and countless individual tracks. And the IJS concept has been modified and streamlined to create kind of a synergistic working relationship between studio and artist. They can afford what we do, and we can maintain profitability without sacrificing the quality of our service. It's a win-win for both of us. Overall, the IJS Studio concept is pretty straightforward. We are a low-cost, high-quality recording studio, operating on the principle of minimizing overhead and passing savings directly onto our clients. After trying various iterations of pricing structures over my first few years of business, including flat rate per song prices and a variety of scaled hourly billing rates, I realized at the beginning of 2012 that the solution to the problem in Central Illinois was very simple. Basically, a high-end studio can cost upwards of $1 million to build. I mean, even more if you get into some of the crazier places, but that cost gets built into the rates that these studios are charging clients. $60 an hour isn't really $60 an hour. Half of that is almost immediately going to overhead for most of these businesses. So we realized that IJS can maintain a quality service, but also charge a much less expensive price by reducing overhead. And we do this by occupying a modest space. We don't have the newest equipment always, but we have everything necessary to record high quality professional Redbook CD standard meeting songs and records for area bands. Nothing more, nothing less. This creates, an ideal middle ground between the premium rates that these bigger studios are charging and the budgets that local bands have at their disposal. So far, this iteration of the IJS business model has proven to be very, very effective. I'm a student at the Illinois Institute of Art Chicago full-time, and over the past 2 years, I have commuted from Chicago to Normal, Illinois to operate IJS studios on a part-time basis. Over those 2 years, I have seen 20% increases in revenue yearly, and I'm currently on pace to increase revenue 15% this quarter over the same quarter last year. As my graduation fast approaches, the success of IJS Studios has led me to a decision to open as a full-time business venture. The company has only really just begun to tap into the local market, and we occupy a very unique and specific niche. And in turn, we have plenty of room to grow, which is exactly why I'm speaking to you today. In order to open IJS Studios as a full-time venture, we are seeking $45,000 in initial investment capital. Investment will be considered in the form of 49 shares priced at $918.37 each. Each share is worth a 1% stake in the company. This initial investment will cover various expenses, including several pieces of new recording equipment, software, some minor upgrades for our current studio space, and our first year of operating costs. In addition, a portion of this investment will fund our advertising initiatives. This is done with the goal in mind of jump-starting bookings over the course of our first year of operation. Interest in the company will receive a take of profits yearly scaled based on percent ownership. Our financial projections have suggested in a break-even point after just over 1 year of operation, and by the beginning of our third year of business, we will have reached the 33% return on initial investment mark. The subsequent 2 years after that third year, we expect to see 10% increases in that return on initial investment yearly. Keep in mind that the average yearly growth of the stock market hovers at around 11%, and our projections suggest a greater return on investment over 2 years by well over 10%. IJS will achieve this growth via our marketing strategy, which is targeted very specifically towards area rock and metal artists. We will place print ads in relevant music publications in the area, as well as produce radio spots for hard rock and college radio stations. Well-placed advertising, combined with our already developed and soon-to-be expanded web presence, will help to assert the IJS brand locally. In year 2, we will begin to reposition our advertising and start branching out into more regional markets, places with a very vibrant rock and metal scenes such as Minneapolis, Chicago, St. Louis, or Indianapolis. Naturally, throughout this time, we're going to be refining and streamlining our service even further than we already have, to make it as effective of a studio as it possibly can be. And in doing so, our focus will be able to slowly shift from working with just local and regional artists to artists working on signed independent labels like Media Scare, Rise Records, or Vagrant Records. In the long term, we plan to expand in the form of hiring additional engineers and moving into a purpose-built studio sometime after 10 years of operation. Please refer to the included business plan as well as the appendix of supporting documents for an in-depth explanation of IJS Studios and our business model. For further inquiry or clarification, feel free to contact me personally at 309-212-7574 or through my email at ian@ijsaudio.com. Thank you for your time.